Hello, it's Blockchain here coming at you with another technical analysis update. For those of you just tuning in, I'm primarily an Elliott Wave trader using other areas of Confluence and other technical analysis to really complement my price analysis. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the charts. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you're at in the world. It is Blockchain. Before we dive into the charts, guys, again, just wanted to give another quick announcement. If you guys have been watching the video, you guys already know I do have my website. It is up and live. Biggest thing I do want to highlight it on right now was I am actually giving away my #1 trading strategy for free. Yep, that's right. It is completely free. All you need to do is go to my website, click on the Get in Touch, and basically just register for it, and then I will actually kick you over a video going through my #1 trading strategy that is consistent, profitable, reliable, and applicable to any market. So make sure you guys jump on there and I will go ahead and kick it your way. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into ETH. So from a recap, really from what we're looking for from the 4-hour, the daily that we talked about yesterday, is just this being a completed complex structure as a W, X, Y, X, Z. And what I'm looking for this complex structure to complete as is a fourth wave, meaning that we have a decent amount of potential downside to go. So I was looking at this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 as an impulsive wave to the downside. You can see we do have we have a 5-wave structure inside of wave 3. And with the law of alteration, we had a really short wave 2, and generally what that means is wave 4 is going to be drawn out in a little bit longer. Now with this pretty aggressive drop, is probably drawn out in a little bit longer than what a normal wave 4 would be. But in my eyes, I'm counting this as complete. Now, can we move up correctively still? You bet, absolutely. We could move up correctively all day long. However, there's a lot of resistance in this area. We have the 200 EMA. We've bashed our head on twice and got rejected, and now coming back down to the downside as we speak. So let's go ahead and dive into the 15-minute. All right, after we look at some targets here for some potential downside. So what I'm looking for from a downside, and this is very, very early. We don't have anything exact yet. We don't really have any wave structures to look at to get a pinpoint on price. But I mean, I would, we could even look down as $40 for ETH right now, which is kind of crazy. But then again, oil went negative today, which is the first time that's ever happened in history. So there can be some craziness happening, over the next couple months. Roughly, if we follow the trend line, that would put it, let's see, May 16th. So definitely possible. We can see what this wave structure looks like as it forms, but ultimately I'm looking for it to come back down to the downside, either double bottom 95, go a little bit lower. We have another fib here at 60, and then another stop right here at 41 on this trend line. So that's what I'm looking for ultimately on the longer term for the downside. I do have a long-term short at 187 that I do plan on just sitting in. Don't plan on pulling that anytime soon. So we'll see what that plays out to be. All right, so let's look at some shorter time frames. So from the video yesterday, guys, we were looking for the downside targets, which we definitely did get. We were looking from anywhere in this zone from 178 down to 173 in this pocket right here, in which we did fill those. And that was going to be more for if this was going to be an ABC, hit this trend line and kind of bounce up and go from there. What our options were was a complex correction for an A, B, and then a 5-wave structure down for the C. So we did get our targets. So if you guys did see my video last night, took a trade, and I'm sure you guys got a decent amount of return off of this drop here. But what we did see is this move up in a 3-wave structure, and that was the dead giveaway that we were ultimately going to go further to the downside. What I'm looking at this being now is actually something a little bit more aggressive, and where I highlighted on the video yesterday where this could potentially be a wave 1, 2, and then a 3, 4, and a 5, meaning that if we started off impulsively from this high, what starts with 5, it needs to end with 5. And it could have either been in a 5 wave here, coming up for a B, and then another 5 wave done. But let's pull some fibs real quick and see where we're at. So if this is a wave 1, a perfect fib extension for a wave 3 is a 1.618. So that's what we need to look at, and that's also the expanded C pocket. A couple things we can look at. One is the RSI. So right here we can see how much the RSI has actually reset, which is very typical for a wave 4. We're right back into the middle of the RSI. Bashed our heads on the neutral zone a couple times, and it ultimately does look like it wants to roll over just like it did here. And you also have slight bearish divergence between these 2 points here as well. So that's one thing I want to look at. So I am looking at this coming back down to this trend line here around 157. This trend line does go back quite a bit, and again, we want to look at for confluence, and we know we have a pretty strong trend line right here as well as a fib saying that for this potentially to be done. So what I would look for, if this is a impulsive wave, it's be a 1, 2, 3 coming out for the 4th, and then back down for the 5th. And remember I said before with the rule of alteration, so we did have a fairly drawn out 2, so we could have a shorter 4, then ultimately back down for the 5. And then we'll want to see how we react after that, whether it's a 5-wave structure up or another 3-wave, consolidate sideways for a little bit, and it could go all the way back up to 187, 190. But whatever starts with 5, remember it has to end with 5. So being this would be a 5-wave completed move, we can move back up correctively, but ultimately we need to connect it with another 5-wave to the downside. And our targets for that is really what's going to depend on how far we go up correctively before we continue the drop. So what I mean by that is if this is going to end up being an impulsive wave for a wave 1, and look at some targets. So we hit our target right here at 157. Even if we come back up, retest the high, which we normally don't quite go that high and aggressive with it. Our next target would be for if this was a wave 1 for an impulsive wave down, would be 114 roughly would be the next target. So that is what I'm looking for. It does look to be moving impulsively to the downside. There is a lot of tell signs that I'm seeing, and it's definitely something we'll be paying attention to. Also, one thing just to be careful of with ETH is it does love to have an extended 5-wave move. What that means is generally we'll see it in the 3rd wave here, whether we'll have an extended 3rd or extended 5th wave inside the 3rd wave, or overall an extended 5th. And what I mean by that is a lot of times just the 5th wave by itself will hit extensions for the 3.618, 4.236, or even the 4.618 on ETH. So it does love to have some overextended waves, and it's generally going to be the 5th wave, or it's the 5th wave inside of the 3rd wave that we normally see those overextensions on. So that is something we'll want to pay attention to. Obviously, if we do hit those, we would be breaking some pretty long-term resistance. Long-term support. Because if we have this trend line right here at the 157 that has really held us up with this 45-degree angle that has held us up the entire way, and if we break that, that's going to be a pretty bearish sign, and ultimately I would be looking for further moves to the downside. So that is what I'm looking for on ETH, guys. So I do actually want to go ahead and share this with you for what I was looking for. I've actually started to play with the Gantt chart, and what I'm looking at and how it reads, and I'll do a video specifically on how I made this chart and ultimately how to read it overall. But really quick, sum it up, all these gray lines, these are acting as supports and resistances, and they can also create channels and overall volume of direction. So we have these 45-degree angles, these darker gray lines right here. Right now it's following that angle, which is a pretty aggressive move. That's something we'll want to be looking at. But you kind of see that it actually has played out pretty well. We had this line right here that played it as support, had the line above it, and this channel playing as resistance. And then even on this move up, this is the 0.5 fib of the overall drop from our most recent high. And we also came back down here for the 382 fib of that drop as well. We found it as support, and that's where we bounced. Right now, kind of hanging around in this channel. I was talking about this earlier in the group where we probably bounce around in here for a little bit. But I'd like to ultimately see, where this is gonna, ultimately go. I think we were talking around roughly 157 before, depending where that falls, how quickly it falls. We could be looking, ultimately for a next support around 150. I did talk about an overextended fifth wave as well. So those are some things that I am, looking at. Again, I'm fairly new to the Gantt chart, and I'm, learning as I go. But I did want to share that, it has maybe a little bit of meaning so far, and I'll kind of keep you posted as how it plays out, some things that I'm looking for on it. So yeah, that's all I got, guys. Let's go ahead and bounce over to Bitcoin. Before we dive into my charts of Bitcoin, I did want to share a little bit of information as well. Again, kind of just to talk about, again, I'll try and look for a lot of different areas of technical analysis during whenever I do my videos. This one is going to be the liquidation levels, and there is just a ton of weight that is on top of Bitcoin right now in regards to shorts. So even back here when we got up to 7,300 or so, we had a few shorts that were put in. There's a $21 million short. This is a 25x. This is its liquidation level. A couple more 25x's on a 25 million, 24 million. These are 50x's, 21 million, 24 million, 25 million. So pretty intense in regards to what we have above us. A lot of the 20 million ballpark, uh, you know, positions that are above us, anywhere between 25x and 50x. Even as we move down, a couple more 50x's for 20 million plus. So pretty interesting to see that there was just how much weight is, really sitting on top of Bitcoin right now. Now, it doesn't mean, we can't come up and these get liquidated, but it just makes it a little bit harder. Pretty similar story right now for ETH. Not quite as heavy positions. These ones are, 3 million, 1 million, 2 million. So on and so forth. These longs here, are getting pretty wiped out, especially on this drop. So there's leaving a lot of room right above us, right here for all of these. The 25x's and the 50x position. So just a little bit of information I wanted to share. So let's go ahead and dive into Bitcoin. And again, kind of just looking at the 4 hour, a similar story for what I'm looking for in overall. Overall is a WXYXE completed structure. And what I ideally wanted to see, I was looking for, one more little pump up, tag this 200 EMA just like we did with ETH. However, Bitcoin just didn't have it in it. Kind of just rolled over right here. But again, same story. I'm looking at this as a, relabel it for you guys, as a 1, 2, and this is your 1, 2, 3, 4, extended fifth wave for a third, up again for a fourth, and then coming back down for the fifth. And where could ultimately be the fifth wave targets. So if you kind of, this one was a bad one to pull from based on overextension because of the third wave was so overextended. We tagged 5.618, which is a super extended fib. But I get a better idea of what a fifth wave could be. You take the target, or I'm sorry, waves 0, 3, and 4. It's right there. Oops, sorry guys. Oh, I did that. Let's try that one more time. All right, so you take 0, 3, and 4, and that'll give us some fifth wave targets. Now, generally for a fifth wave target, what we'll see is the 0.5, the 0.6 would ain't somewhere in that ballpark. So we could come back down to 3,100. Double bottom right here at 3,900. We also have a couple trend lines I don't have on this particular chart, going from um, the high. There's a couple different ones that we can go ahead and put in real quick. This was one right here, roughly, that we tagged. And then we also had one um, on the bottom that I was also looking at. I don't know if you guys can hear that snoring or not, but that is my bulldog, and he is intense. All right, so kind of similar thing. Again, not a perfect trend line, but we're a couple ones again that can potentially come back and use as support as we do have this move to the downside that I'm looking for. So right here, this one makes the most sense. Sitting at about 3,100, just so it gets a little bit closer to this trend line. Again, it's a little, somewhat subjective. I didn't draw it that perfect. We can try and button it up a little bit and take it to a little bit more of the extremes. And I mean, that's pretty close. And that is, roughly on May 11th, May 8th, in that ballpark. I think the one that I had on ETH was like May 16th, somewhere in that ballpark. So that is where I'm looking for from a confluence perspective, and how deep this thing could potentially go for what I am looking for. So let's go ahead and dive into the 15-minute real quick. So again, just to recap on the video, pretty similar to ETH, and again, which is why I do trade and do analysis on both of them. It's just because there's a 98% confluence in comparison in how they move. So it's not always the same wave structures. However, the movements are pretty identical with each other, and sometimes the wave structures give a little bit more clarity that I'll use in my price analysis and predictions for where can price ultimately go. So from a quick recap, similar to ETH, I was looking at this as an ABC down for a three-wave structure, which means we would ultimately correct and move back up a little bit higher. Or potentially this would be a wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 for an impulsive wave down. And what it could have been was a zigzag, which is a 5, 3, 5. Now let's go ahead and pull the fibs on this move down real quick. So similar to ETH, we actually tagged the 1.618 pretty much to a T. And depending on the wave structure for what I'm looking at, it could be somewhat argued that on the smaller time frame we'd have to look, but we need to have a wave 1 appear. So it'd be a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, finish off a 3-wave move inside of the wave 3, or a 5-wave move inside the wave 3, come back up for the 4th, and then pretty similar to ETH, look how high RSI reset on this particular move. We do have the divergence that we like to look for on the 4th wave, and it's kind of just trailing sideways. Again, kind of a longer 2. We could have a shorter 4 to ultimately get back down here for a wave 5 target would roughly be about 66.30 on Bitcoin. And again, that's being argued that there is a 5-wave move in there already. We can still come back down, have that extended 3-wave where this would come back down. So I need to look at a smaller time frame to see if we can get a 5-wave move down for a 1, back up for a 2, then 3, 4, and a 5. It looks like it could potentially be there, but might be a little difficult to see. So that's I'll do a little bit bigger deep dive on that particular one, and I'll post it in the Discord for everybody. So again, looking for a wave 4 to come back out, ultimately back down for a wave 5 around the 66.31. Again, that puts us at a trend line just like we had on ETH. It actually goes back quite far. Bitcoin actually had a few different trend lines, and it's actually rolled over a lot more aggressive than what ETH has. ETH actually came up and we double topped on this move up. Bitcoin we didn't, and we kind of just have started to really just roll over. We had 2 different trend line supports that we lost on this particular one, and I'd say this one here would ultimately end up being roughly the final one that we could potentially call a trend line with based upon the number of touches that we have, and potentially fall below it. So if this is an extended third coming up and then an extended fifth would put us roughly around 62.73. So that is something to look for. We can have this fourth wave go up as high as 6,900. However, if you look at the overall resistance zone for where we are currently, let's go ahead and put a line on there. Oops, wrong one. Let's do that horizontal line. So even right here, kind of we'll just call it the top of what we're looking for in a wave 4. So we touch there, kind of bounce back and forth here, multiple touches here. We did break him a couple times, but ultimately came back down, we came back down. Guess what? We're up, and then we came back down. So it looks like it is, somewhat losing steam and really kind of just consolidating, but a lot of resistance right here in this zone at the 6,900 level. Even going back as far as here where we tagged it a couple times and we just could not get up above it. So a lot of resistance right here in this particular area for where we are right now. And it wouldn't surprise me if you had roll over, get this fourth wave, come back down for a fifth, get a little bit of a correction, and then what we'd want to see is a potential three-wave move. And if this does end up being a wave 1 overall, remember, if it starts with 5, it needs to end with 5, meaning that it is either a overall impulse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going to the downside, or it's an ABC zigzag on a three-wave move, and that's how we'll try and determine some of the targets. But either way, this move right here is going to be a three-wave move for what we're looking for. Look for something like that. And then how do we find our targets for the bounce up? So we'll pull our extensions. So say we did come down and we tagged right here at 66.20. Generally for wave 1, we'll see it come back up into the 618 territory right here. And then that's when we'll kind of start to roll over. Now for a wave 1, we can come all the way back up to wave 2. We can come all the way back up to the start of wave 1. We just cannot surpass it, or else it doesn't validate this as being a wave 1. But that still could be a potential zigzag for another 5-wave move to the downside, which is generally a 1-to-1 extension if it does retrace past the beginning of what this would be in a wave A at that point. Making it a three-wave move. So that is what I'm looking for, guys. But looking for another ultimately wave down, then back up for a 2. And like I said, guys, I've been looking for this 5-wave move down to take us back down to roughly $3,000, $4,000 again for quite some time. And this complex correction has just drawn out like crazy. So this may be the beginning of it. We'll, again, stay pretty close to it. I'll keep you guys updated on my thoughts. Again, if this is going to be a wave 1, we can even get somewhat of a projection for what this would be if it was a wave 1. So say we came back up to the 618, that would make this wave 3 and wave 4 back right here at the 5,300 level. So and that's if nothing gets overextended. We can definitely have something overextended, but this could be because wave 3 was so aggressive. We can have a truncated fifth, and this could definitely happen. And then if you look at the fib that we drew before, we have the 382 right here, which is from a truncated fifth is pretty common if we have a very aggressive wave 3. And that puts us right here in that ballpark between 5,300 and 5,000. So it is a potential interesting zone to pay attention to. Even coming back to here, we did have a decent amount of support right here in this area where we bounced around quite a bit. So right here in this area is going to be very interesting, and could be a potential bottom before we could start another, hopefully, bull run after that. So that's what I'm looking for, guys. A little bit near term and a little bit longer term ultimately. And again, if you guys have questions, if you guys like my videos and the content that I put out there, make sure you guys smash the likes and hit the subscribe button, ring that little bell, ring a comment down on the bottom, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.